And I also put a link in the chat here to our pre-recorded workshops that are on our YouTube channel, because this particular workshop is basically a little bit more advanced. It is designed for folks that have already created a pretty strong profile and now want to know some best practices for staying active on the site when they are involved in a job search. So I just want to clarify, there is a separate workshop for people that are looking to create a strong profile, and that one is called Creating a Powerful LinkedIn Profile. There is a recording of that on our YouTube um, channel, as we mentioned, and that is in the chat if you would like to access that information. So just a little bit more about me and my background before we get started. So I have been with WGU for about just over 5 years, which is amazing. Definitely time has been flying by. And before I joined WGU, I worked for Arizona State University for a number of years in different career development capacities. So everything with working with first-time freshmen to seasoned professionals, online students, first-generation students, etc. So that's where I was able to develop a lot of really great experience. What I love about working with WGU students is that they come from all walks of life. They're more seasoned. A lot of you folks are making what we call a career pivot. So you have some extensive experience before then. I believe the average age of WGU student is about 37. So a lot of times I get students that are concerned about making a career change and, worried about their age and such, but a lot of times they start to realize that they're in common company. So I'm fortunate to be able to split my time between snowy Northwest Pennsylvania, which is where I am right now, and sunny Tempe, Arizona, and I'm looking forward to returning there soon. So this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I've been doing trainings on LinkedIn since about 2011. I've seen the site change quite a bit. So I hope you take away some really great tips on how to stay engaged with a resource when it comes to the job search. Before we get into the official content here, I would like to know a little bit about you folks. So if you wouldn't mind just typing in what school you're from, and when I mean say school, it's like IT, business, education, healthcare, and what interests you about this topic in particular at this point in time. All right, we see a lot of IT folks, some business folks, someone active, Caroline's active on the job search. Latest strategies on the platform changes often. Absolutely, Allegra. Preparing to join the workforce after being finished with school. Okay, so Tori looking for a job, never had LinkedIn before, want to learn how to stand out. Yep, strategizing my job search on LinkedIn. Excellent. Yeah, so hopefully you can all see that you're in common company. There's a lot of folks that are actively on the job search, some making a career pivot. Again, maybe you see some folks that are also from your discipline on here. And when I do workshops, also I encourage, you know, uh, opportunities to connect. So if at the end of the workshop, if you feel like sharing your LinkedIn profile with others and saying, what you would like to communicate about, you can feel free to put that in the chat as well, because this could be a good platform for people to interact as well. Great, I see another comment. It's a good idea to know what optimal looks like during my job search. Absolutely. And like I said, for this workshop, we're focusing more on utilizing the site and some of the more up-to-date features rather than how do you build a strong profile. So I'm going to show you kind of how this workshop fits into the other things that we offer on the same topic. So you'll see we do have a separate workshop that's called How Do I Get Started Networking? And this one helps you to really delve into how do you have those career conversations and use the LinkedIn alumni tool to make connections. There's another one called Personal Branding in Your LinkedIn Profile that focuses on, taking a step back and thinking about how do you create a strong personal brand. and really be able to articulate that to employers and make sure that that is consistent in your LinkedIn profile. We have another one that's building a powerful LinkedIn profile that was mentioned before. And you can also access that on our YouTube channel, or you can continue to monitor our workshop offerings. They're through Handshake. So whatever you prefer in terms of the type of workshop that you're looking for. So hopefully that's helpful in terms of the different offerings and how this all fits together. So what we're going to talk about today are, first we're going to do a check-in. Are you prepared for the job search in terms of knowing what your job target might be, knowing what skills and qualifications they're looking for, conducting what we call a gap analysis, seeing where you are with the skills and qualifications they're asking you to have, what you currently possess, what your plan might be to fill in any of those gaps. So we'll talk about the general part of this, making sure that you're prepared for that job search. Then we will delve into some of those LinkedIn optimization strategies, talk a little bit more about some more recent LinkedIn updates to be aware of. And then I also want to share with you, there's an article that I came across a while back about how do you maintain regular LinkedIn presence using just minutes a day? Because LinkedIn does have some algorithms that track your involvement. So the more that you're able to have a strategy that really promotes your regular presence, the more likely you are to be visible on LinkedIn and to also be more successful with your search. So we'll talk about a little bit about that. And then next steps, when I do workshops, I like to do 30-day challenges, hopefully to help you engage a little bit more with the material right away. I think we can all relate to attending a professional development seminar and saying, wow, I should really do some of these tips that I'm learning. Then we get back to our day-to-day lives. Days become weeks, weeks become months. And unfortunately, some of that material may fall by the wayside. So I hope to engage all of you with a 30-day challenge. We are looking at, my goodness, it'll be February 9th, 30 days from now. I encourage you to think of 3 next steps that you can take based on the material that you learn, and to write those down, maybe even enlist an accountability buddy and see if you were able to be successful with that. So just keep that in mind as we go through the workshop of some next steps that you might be able to take. So like I said, one of the first things that we want to take a look at here would be, are you prepared in general for the job search? So with that, there's a couple of things that we want to make sure you consider. So first of all, do you have a job target in mind? Like I said, we have a lot of students that make what we call a career pivot. It's typically where they may have experience in another field and they're switching to an entirely different field, or they may be entering the professional arena for the first time. Maybe they have had some brief positions here and there, and they're really delving deeply into the professional world. So that can be entirely new to you folks that are in that situation. So being aware what your possibilities may be for your degree is really important. On our website, which has recently been redesigned, if you've been familiar with our prior website, it does take a little bit of getting used to, but it is much more customized and streamlined now. So we're really excited about that. That was released, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. But on our website, there are what are called career guides. So if you haven't seen these, you may want to go on and look, because for each of our degrees, there are common job titles that are listed, as well as average salary information, the top skills you would need, the top qualifications, etc. So if you're not sure about the possibilities for your degree, one that comes to mind is MBA. That's probably the most versatile degree that we offer at WGU. And it's very common that I hear, folks say, I hear that having an MBA, really helps to make me marketable, but I don't know what I want to do with it. That's where this job target comes into play. So using resources like our career guides on our website. Also on our website, we have career development divided up into 7 milestones. And the first one is all about identifying your career goal. So there are some top questions you can ask yourself related to this, like, What skills do I want to be using? What are the must-haves for the next step in my career? Whether it is a minimum salary, certain schedule, certain work environment that you might be wanting to pursue. So having ideas of that target, or maybe there's a couple of targets, is really important in terms of being prepared for that job search. If we can be of any further assistance to you in terms of assisting, with identifying that target, you can always schedule an appointment with us, and we can help to talk you through some resources and maybe some ideas for that. It's also important to view sample job descriptions for whatever your job targets might be. So for example, if you're looking into becoming a cybersecurity analyst, a software engineer, a healthcare administrator, using sites like Indeed, LinkedIn, some of those larger job searching sites can help you to take a look at these job descriptions, notice the trends that you see in terms of, what are the top skills that they're asking me to have? Are there unique certifications they're asking you to have? How many years of experience? It's really important to know, again, when you're looking at that job search, what are they asking you to have? On our website, we also have what's called a gap analysis exercise. This is located under milestone 2. And this allows you to document those trends that you see in terms of, okay, what are these positions asking me to have? What do I realistically currently possess? And then what do I need to build up in order to get to those positions? On a side note, there are unique ways that you can build up experience. Some folks are not aware that you can do internships at any point in your career. Even if you have your degree and you have gaps in experience, there's a site called Parker Dewey that you may want to explore that has all remote internships that are all paid, for example. So there are ways to build experience, just so you know, as you're looking at your overall career strategy. And then researching employers of interest. So you may know what types of positions that you're seeking, but do you know what kind of environments you want to work in? Do you want to work in corporate? And if you do you want it to be small, medium, or large? Are you interested in the government sector, nonprofit? So having an idea of the arenas, but also then specific employers can be helpful. And then utilizing the LinkedIn alumni tool can be an amazing feature in order to expand your network, and perhaps looking at conducting what we call informational interviews. Just curious, has anyone, if you just don't mind sharing in the chat, have any of you used the alumni tool feature in LinkedIn that lets you look at career outcomes of other WGU students and grads before? Okay, I see Andrew's sharing. He hasn't had that chance yet. Just to know how you can find it is when you're in LinkedIn, just do a search for Western Governors University. It will give you the prompt for the school page. You select that particular page, then it'll have a series of tabs, and you simply select the alumni tab. And you're going to see an amazing amount of information in terms of what everybody majored in, where they live, where they work, what they do, and what their top skills are. Even though it's called the alumni tool, you will see current students as well. So it is really an important feature, and it's really the one that has the wow factor is what I say, because there's so much you can do with it. People ask all the time, like, who are the employers that most frequently hire WGU students? Where are students doing internships? You will see tried and true career paths of other graduates when you use that alumni tool. And then, like I said, you can reach out and say, maybe you're seeking some advice. Would these folks be willing to connect with you and conduct informational interviews? This is where you have the chance to talk to them about how they got their start in the field. And that's a unique way to expand your network while also learning about different positions in the field. So yeah, so Thea mentions recently heard about the alumni tool, still trying to catch up. Yeah, there's a lot out there, isn't there? But alumni tool I would put at the top of your list, because not only does it allow you to, maybe facilitate some more connections, but the sheer amount of data that you can get of, again, those tried and true career paths of our graduates is extremely helpful. So I just recommend that you all take a look at that. And then lastly, when you're looking for these tips for job searches, creating a job search plan. So after you're looking at your targets, you're doing the gap analysis, seeing what skills and experiences you may be missing, thinking of ways that you can build up that experience, and making sure you have your other materials, like your resume is a pretty solid foundation for a LinkedIn profile. So we do resume reviews by email, by the way, and there's more information about that on our website. We do ask you to go through a brief tutorial, fill out a self-review form based on what you learned, submit that self-review and a Microsoft Word copy of your resume to us. Then we can provide that review very detailed to you by email. And you can use a lot of that information in your LinkedIn profile. So this is important to check in about just to make sure that you are in general ready for that job search. Now, when we are filtering in and really honing in on LinkedIn specifically, there are a few things to be aware of here. When we talk about this concept of optimization of LinkedIn, again, with this, you basically want to have a pretty strong profile. And we do review those by email as well. We do ask you to go through our LinkedIn user guide on our website first, which, by the way, is an excellent tool. It's very comprehensive. It takes you section by section in terms of, what should be in that about me section, which for a lot of people is really tricky. What should I put in my headline? What should I consider when I'm putting my experience down? So having a strong profile is really important first, and making sure that essentially it reflects your personal brand. But when we're talking about this concept of optimization, when you're optimizing your presence on LinkedIn, you appear in more searches because, as we said, LinkedIn has the algorithms to track your activity. So the more active you are on the site, the more visible you will be to employers and recruiters. So having an optimized profile means you have a complete and updated profile with relevant information, as well as, again, kind of a regular presence, if you will. LinkedIn has revealed that having a complete and optimized profile alone makes you 40 times more likely to receive opportunities and be found. So again, it's really important to have that regular presence and the strong profile. Also, building and strengthening your professional brand is part of that optimization. We do have a separate workshop, as you've seen in the beginning, on personal branding in your LinkedIn profile, which really goes into some details to think about. And in that workshop, there will be questions like, what are the problems that you want to solve in your field? How might you uniquely be qualified to be successful in your field, especially if you're making a career pivot? So what unique skills and experiences can you bring to this next opportunity? And who is the population that you want to serve? So these are some important points to consider when you're looking at that personal or professional brand. And again, on our YouTube channel, we do have a recording of that workshop if you want to delve more deeper into that topic as well. So also the optimization involves positioning yourself as an expert and or thought leader in your industry. And if that term expert makes you kind of cringe a little bit, I would try to take some of that pressure off of yourself. And what it really is more about is showing what you know in your field and showing what you're learning. Speaking of, has anybody out there published an article on LinkedIn? I'm just curious if you want to type in the chat, if anyone, yes or no, if you've tried that before. Okay, Ariana says hasn't tried that yet. Anyone else? Okay, yeah, I appreciate the honesty. And Thean mentions no, but it sounds like an interesting idea. Absolutely, and I would like to encourage folks to try that, because that is part of the optimization. And I just want to say that, again, you don't have to be a top thought leader in your industry to publish an article. All of you as competency-based degree candidates, or even competency-based degree recipients, have a unique experience. WGU has been a thought leader since 1997, since their existence, where we do things differently. We don't have you fulfill seat time hours. We have you show your mastery of content in a short amount of time. So you can even publish an article about your experience as a competency-based degree student. And I would even say tying in your capstone, just talk about, hey, when you do your capstone, what did you work on? What were some of your takeaways? What advice would you give to other folks that might also be, maybe even considering being a student at WGU? These are kinds of things that you can cover in an article because it's all about you sharing your expertise and perspective. So just something to think about on there. And also, the optimization helps you to stand out if you apply for a job through LinkedIn, because again, it has the algorithms that track your involvement. And it also involves building relationships with recruiters and other professionals. These are all part of that concept. So what are some ways then that you can tangibly optimize your LinkedIn profile? First of all, going back to what we said a little bit earlier, assure that your profile sections are current and complete. So a lot of times I'll talk to students that say, yes, I have a profile, but especially those of you that are making a pivot. Is your profile up to date in terms especially of your about me section or your personal summary there and your headline? Because it's very common to be pursuing a degree and then forget about that, right? But you want to make sure that your profile is up to date with, again, those items like what are the problems you want to solve in your field? How did you become interested in this field? What are the skills that you might be able to bring from a prior role or career into this field? So making sure all of your sections are up to date and complete. Ensure that you appear on LinkedIn searchers when recruiters conduct searches by adding relevant keywords to your profile. So this goes back to when you're looking at job descriptions. If you see repeatedly, like I'm just going to use project manager as an example, and they talk about successfully being able to oversee multiple projects simultaneously, there should be something about that in your profile. Or if you possess PMP certification, I would make sure that that's in your headline. It is also in your About Me section, and it is in your certification section so that it really is front and center when they're looking for you. Also, grabbing the recruiter's attention. So when they do take a look at that profile, they want to know more. A great way to do that is in your headline section. So there's different ways to work with that headline, but one practice, and I do this on my own profile as well, is to put in any certifications as part of that are especially relevant to your field, and to also use hashtags with certain keywords to make yourself more visible. Some of you might even be able to articulate your why in just a few words in that headline to get employers more interested. So maybe you say something like, streamlining processes to provide priority service to people, something like that. And then maybe you also add as part of that any relevant certifications, hashtags, etc. And in that About Me section, it would be a great idea to be able to grab the recruiter's attention early on. In my own profile, I ask a question to try to get folks engaged. You might think of the same thing, or maybe you include, say, an inspirational quote that really does impact or influence the work that you do. So those are a couple of ideas of how you might be able to gauge that interest. Also, it's important to think about what is your primary purpose for using LinkedIn at this time. So are you actively job searching? Because if you are, you're probably going to want to put some pretty intense daily interaction with LinkedIn time into your schedule. If it is, expanding your network and reach, and you're maybe not really actively job searching yet, it's important to kind of note that for when you're looking at your strategy. Do you want to establish yourself as a thought leader in your field? Something else to consider. Do you want to show recruiters you are open to work? You can always put that banner also on your profile to showcase that. Whatever your goals are, you should utilize these to guide you in terms of your strategy using LinkedIn at this time. And this concept of thinking like a recruiter, when you have an idea of what your LinkedIn goals are, it's important to kind of put yourself in that employer or recruiter shoes. So some questions to think about when you're in that role. What type of job candidate would the recruiter like to hire for the position they are interested in? There's a lot of emphasis, by the way, as you might have seen, on what we call EQ or emotional intelligence. Here at WGU, we also call it SEL or social emotional learning. In this age of AI, a lot of employers and recruiters are seeking individuals with strong EQ or emotional intelligence. Is there a way that you can articulate that in your profile and show evidence of that? Because that could definitely be a differentiating factor for you in terms of other candidates. What problems would the recruiter want you to solve? You said earlier when we're talking about your why and your personal brand, that would be an important question. What keywords or skills would the recruiter most likely search for? So again, if you are, let's say, a program manager in the tech industry, they would probably be looking for things like, maybe PMP certification, um, uh, certain software that's utilized to manage multiple projects, or, Six Sigma or Scrum Master experience. These are the kinds of things they would likely be looking for. You may also go as far as to seek help from real recruiters and ask them what they're looking for. Sometimes you're able to set up brief conversations with them. And yeah, I understand you don't always hear back, but sometimes it can be worth reaching out to recruiters and seeing if they're willing to share what they're looking for in the ideal candidate. So you know what kinds of things to emphasize. And then in your experience section on your LinkedIn profile, it's a good practice to connect to your previous company's LinkedIn page. So basically when you're in edit mode, you can, it allows you to do that so that there's like a little icon that pops up for those companies. And that will also make you more visible if you haven't been doing that. Some other tips. So in the skills section, the skills you put on your profile are factored into LinkedIn's algorithm, which basically means that when a recruiter searches for a specific skill, your profile will appear in the search if it matches that skill. So for this, you want to be aware that on your skills section, your top 3 will pop up automatically when someone looks at your profile. So you want to be mindful of what are those top 3 that they see immediately. And then with the rest of them, just being mindful of what are those keywords that you want them to know the most. So besides LinkedIn users with 5 or more skills listed on their profile, they receive 33 times more messages from recruiters and other members and get 17 times more profile views, if you will. So you have a total of 50 skills you can list. And again, you want to be mindful of the top 3 that show up so that folks can see those more easily. And also, it can be a good practice to add your resume to LinkedIn. I'm going to show you here in just a few moments. You can now upload up to 5 different copies of your resume. This could be good for folks that have a very diverse background where they've been in many different industries, many different positions, and or if you want to be more discreet in your job search and you don't want your current employer to know, in the job section, there is a section again where you save a copy of your resume that won't be visible to your employer. So something else to keep in mind. Joining relevant LinkedIn groups. There are so many groups out there. One of the things I would recommend is that if you do have certifications, say like PMP certification, some of maybe the IT related ones, that you also check and see if there are any any LinkedIn groups related to that and request to join those so that you can expand your community and also stay up to date on some recent developments that may be happening with those certifications. And think of joining groups from different angles. Just an example I'm throwing out there, when I work for Arizona State, they're really big in sustainability. And they have a whole school of sustainability at that institution. And there's a Green Chamber of Commerce that is available in the Phoenix area. And if, like, for example, if you ever had an interest in sustainable practices, you could look at what groups also incorporate sustainability and be able to broaden your network, and also maybe think about some differentiating factors for yourself. Something else to consider. Following companies of interest and interacting with company pages is really important because, again, it goes back to those algorithms and they do track your activity. So definitely if there's a company you've always wanted to work for, making sure that you are following, seeing what they're sharing, maybe participating in some conversations as well. And as we said earlier, utilizing hashtags is important, especially in that headline that's right under your photo. Um, Maintaining regular presence. We talked a little bit about that idea of publishing articles, which can be good practice. Sharing samples of your work. Curious in our audience today, has anyone utilized the featured section in your LinkedIn profile that allows you to highlight up to 5 different pieces of your work? I know when we do LinkedIn profiles, that tends to be an area that is underdeveloped. So just curious if anyone on the session. Okay, Mandara, I appreciate you sharing. You haven't had the chance yet, which is what I commonly see, but it is another way to optimize your presence. So again, when you're in edit mode, there is a featured section where you can upload copies of articles you've contributed to, projects you've done, a picture of you in action, a copy of your PowerPoint. These are all really good ideas. Or even if there's a video of you of something that you're doing work related, you can put that in there. Expanding your network, making new connections, especially going back to that alumni tool. If any of you have degrees from prior institutions, you can also look at their school pages and use their alumni tools to expand your network. So that could be a great idea. So Thea mentions, okay, haven't used the featured section, but have privacy and security. Yes, I understand that. And that is something important to mention, concerns about disclosing company assets. So that could be a challenge and something you definitely want to be aware of. Some of you may be limited in what you can share with that, and that's understandable. You may look at sharing other things like maybe a copy of your capstone or other kind of personal projects you've done or articles that you are able to share. And then making sure that you update your profile regularly. I'm confess, I'm a little guilty of this. I need to update mine in the new year here because I've done several things in the last few months that I really want to put in. So you may even want to put on whatever calendaring system you use. You may want to put in regular LinkedIn update times. That will bring it to the forefront of your mind and hopefully give you that opportunity to make any updates that you need to. So some recent information for you to be aware of. So a lot of times we'll get questions from students. And again, kind of going back to that privacy concern. Some folks are concerned about their presence online, but it is important to note this high statistic in terms of companies that use social media to screen candidates. So 86% of companies use social recruiting to source candidates, as you see here. So that would include things like, LinkedIn, Meta, X. These platforms are always changing names. Instagram, TikTok, those kinds of platforms, just to be aware. And then LinkedIn is up to, might even be higher now, but 58.4 million companies and 6.4 million plus jobs. 77 job apps submitted every 60 seconds. That's just mind-boggling to me. 900 million plus users. Actually, they are up to over a billion at this point. So huge number. 94% of recruiters use LinkedIn to find, vet, and hire talent. And 3 people are hired every 60 seconds. So some items to keep in mind. So there's keywords that are vital for the search engine optimization. So when a recruiter, in other words, when a recruiter is looking for you utilizing their software, it's important to keep in mind that diversity and density are paramount. And what this means is that diversity, you want to make sure that you're using a wide range of keywords and key terms and skills, and that you are repeating those throughout your profile. So in other words, like we said on that headline, you may be using your certification, your unique certifications in that section. You may want to mention them in the About Me section, your certifications as well. Skills, the same thing, and you may also incorporate those skills in the skills section. So throughout, you want to make sure that those are present. Another really great tip is to use the full word and acronym for certain terms. So for example, when we're talking about customer relation management, indicating that and also putting CRM. Or if we're talking about the project management certification, putting the PMP and also spelling out the name of certifications. So that will just give you more recognition when employers are searching for you. And this next point is really important to keep in mind. So again, when recruiters are looking for you using their software, the headline, which is the line right under your picture, the skills section, and the job title lines are indexed first. So this is where you want to make sure, again, you're having those keywords as much as possible. You're incorporating those key skills, etc. And something interesting to note is you do have a little bit of flexibility with the job titles that you put in. So on your resume, we basically guide you to list your official titles, whatever they might be, for present and past positions. You have a little bit more flexibility that you may want to take advantage of on LinkedIn, because since those job titles are one of the areas that are indexed first, you might want to make sure, your major function is within that job title. So for example, maybe your official title is program manager or product manager, but data analytics is a big function of yours. You might put in that title for that job, you might say, program manager / data analytics, so that the algorithms are able to pick that up. And in the About section, again, this is the section that can be really challenging for folks because there's not one exact way to do it. But I will say that a strong About Me section is typically 3 to 4 paragraphs long. A lot of times I'll only see one paragraph when I'm evaluating profiles, but the different elements that you want to include in there would be things like, how you became interested in the field, what is your why, a summary of your top skills and experience, what you're looking to do next, maybe what some of your goals are, and possibly a call to action. So those are some of the key elements to include in there. And then writing to your future. This whole concept has to do with, making sure that you're aligning your industry, location, and profile with your target career goal. LinkedIn Recruiter, basically, which is their software to find talent. They'll spotlight candidates who are internal candidates, open to work, engaged with talent brand, which means basically that you're a lot of times like you're following their page and you're commenting on some of the posts, have company connections, and also have been past applicants. So those are just a couple things to note. Some updates on here. You can send video and audio recordings through the messaging mobile app, if you will. If you do decide to do that option, you want to keep the videos 25 to 30 seconds, audio about 15 seconds. There's also an updated industry list that is ongoing. North American Industry Classification System standards basically means that there are more job titles that are constantly being added in there. And I did see a question, so I'm just going to pause for a moment. So for the job title, am I correct that we use our formal title for the resume and a more major functional? Yes, Allegra, exactly, because you do have more of that freedom. And as we were talking about the algorithms and how LinkedIn recruiters find talent, since the job titles are one of the first areas that they look for, that's where you want to be really aware of the functions. So again, like if data analytics is a big part of what you do, but it's not really your job title, for example, it could be a good practice to include that as part of the job title. And then there is also an interview prep function under the jobs tab. And in a moment, I'm going to show you some of these things to be aware of too, just so you know. And then in terms of LinkedIn, or excuse me, resumes. There's a question. Wouldn't that be beneficial for the resume as well? So Allegra, I would be more careful on the resumes because they're still pretty standardized. So what I would do with that is instead, I would focus on making sure that your bulleted accomplishment statements are really illustrating the skill that you're wanting to show, and that your professional profile is the section where you would highlight key skills, certifications, pieces of information, etc. The other trick with the resume is a lot of times you have to be very concise. So for a lot of folks, the limit would be 1 page. For some folks, 2 pages max. So that's the tricks you get into a little bit with there. So for resumes, if you do upload different copies of your resume to LinkedIn, your resume data will get pulled into recruiter searches, just like your profile data. So with that, information from stored resumes can be used to personalize your feed, suggest LinkedIn learning courses even, improve how jobs are ranked when you search, of course, help recruiters find you, recommend jobs you might be interested in, and recommend connections to grow your network. Also, after applying for a job on LinkedIn, you'll be presented with a prompt to share your resume data with all recruiters, and the share resume data with recruiters toggle will be turned on. So that's a function that you can actually enable. You can either turn it off from the prompt or the job application settings page. And to opt in and out of the resume sharing from your job application settings, you'll basically take the following steps. And I will show you this in a moment, but you'll navigate to the Jobs tab, first of all, and then you'll click on the application settings. And then that's where you will see the function to share your resume data with recruiters, whether or not you want to do that. And again, there's also an interview prep function on there now, where it will show you common questions related to industry, provide you with sample answers and instant AI feedback. So that's a great newer feature, if you will. Now, I would like to talk for a moment about how do you maintain presence in minutes a day, and then I will jump onto my profile to show you a couple of things. But as we said earlier, those algorithms are really important in terms of recruiters finding you, and the more active you are on the site, the more algorithms are going to track you. So one idea to stay active that really doesn't take a lot of time typically is to maybe spend 15 minutes a day, Monday through Friday. This is kind of a sample schedule for you where Monday, maybe you do a 5-minute scan of your feed. So let's say you are a program manager and you're in an active job search. So you're doing a 5-minute scan of feed. You know, maybe you like some of the articles people shared. Maybe you make a comment. Maybe you also spend 10 minutes searching for jobs. Maybe you look at your job search agent, see if anything new pops up to you. If you're not actively job seeking, maybe you spend 10 minutes looking for new groups to join or utilize a people you may know feature and make connections there. On the next day, maybe you again do a 5-minute scan of the feed. Maybe you spend 5 minutes visiting top LinkedIn groups, comment or start a discussion. And in the feed, your interaction could be something as simple now. They even have a button you can just press that congratulates people for their work anniversaries or says happy birthday. I mean, those algorithms are tracked, so you can even do those really quick little interactions that can also be tracked. So in groups, to make the most of those, again, sharing your feedback, maybe sharing an article that you found that was interesting can also facilitate discussion. Then maybe you spend the last 5 minutes clearing your inbox for that Tuesday. Wednesday, the middle of the week, maybe you do again that quick scan. Maybe you share your own status update. Things like professional development seminars that you've taken advantage of. For example, if you love this workshop today, you could even, share a little comment about what you learned and ask folks questions about how do you optimize your LinkedIn presence. And that's going to have, folks engage with you a bit more. Spend 10 minutes expanding network utilizing your alumni feature, and then the last 5 minutes cleaning out that inbox. Maybe Thursday, you do a 5-minute scan of the feed, like or comment on at least 3 posts. Then spend 10 minutes searching for LinkedIn company pages for fit and/or information on your industry, especially again, if you are in active job searching mode. Then the end of the week, maybe you spend 5 minutes endorsing skills and experience of others. And by the way, a lot of times there's questions about the difference between endorsement and, say, recommendations. Endorsements honestly don't hold as much weight as recommendations because, as you've probably seen, endorsements, anyone in your network can go on and just click on any of those skills that they feel that you possess. Whereas recommendations are much more detailed. And the best recommendations really reflect your personal or professional brand. So, for example, if you discuss how, if you want to talk about emotional intelligence and you talk about how you are a servant leader in your description, and you talk about being able to customize your leadership techniques to the staff that you serve, is that reflected in the recommendations that have come through from others? So those recommendations do hold a lot more clout. That's also another area that I see as very underdeveloped in profiles. So if you don't have any recommendations, it is suggested that you aim for at least 3, reaching through people in your network and sending out those requests as well. Maybe on Friday, you spend 5 minutes reviewing, revising one quick item on your profile, and then the last 5 minutes reflect on the past week's accomplishments, respond to any new message or is a request to connect. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how you can divvy up some of that presence, so you have a regular presence there. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I want to show you, I want to jump on LinkedIn to show you just a couple of things here that I think are important to highlight. Okay, so when we're talking about optimization again and looking at your profile, going back to the whole personal branding, making sure you have a consistent message. So on my own profile, I have a quote in the background for my banner that I really think reflects the work that I do with students and that I encourage in others. In that headline is that section where you can put a little bit about your why. You can put key descriptors, key skill words, um, certifications, hashtags. These are all really important. Earlier, I talked to you about the featured section. This is that area where you can highlight up to 5 different copies of your work. So once again, if there's like a PowerPoint you can share, there's an article, a picture of you in action. These can all be really great items to reflect that brand as well. Then the experience section, this is where, again, you can be a little bit creative with the position titles to connect with those main functions. But otherwise, a lot of the content should typically reflect your resume. The advantage, though, to this experience section is that you're not held to, say, 1 to 2 pages. I've made the choice to go all the way back in my work history to when I received my master's in 2002. There are different benefits to that and challenges. The benefits are that it will allow me to connect with more people because there are more companies or places listed. The challenge is that, will everyone read that far back in my experience? Probably not. So you have to kind of decide for yourself what you want to do with how far back you want to go. Then there's a project section, like I said, you may want to consider when we're talking about optimization. Are there certain things that you want to showcase for people to see? And then those recommendations, as we said earlier, are important. If you don't currently possess those, this can be a good time to start asking for those. Then also, yeah, so Allegra says 10 to 15 years. It really, honestly, it depends. I've been doing these trainings, like I said, since about 2011. And it depends on your purpose. Going back to that, what is your purpose for being on LinkedIn? If it's to build connections, you're not really job searching. It may be beneficial to go as far back as you like because it will list different opportunities for you to connect with people from other companies from your history. So there's not one exact rule. Just like on resumes, there's not one exact rule for everything, but you do want to be intentional and mindful. So something to think about there. When we go under the job section, this is where you're going to find some different functions. So we have preferences here. This is where you can indicate open to work, on or off. This is that resume and application data that I was talking about, where you can upload up to 5 different copies of your resume. There can be advantages to that, especially if you have very varied work histories, et cetera, and you want to protect some of what's out there from your current employer. You can put that in there as well. And then there is, in addition, My Jobs here. This is where you can track those job search agents. And then we talked a little bit earlier about interview prep. Here's where you can take advantage of that. If you haven't tried it out, it's, again, AI powered, can give you some great feedback on some of those common interview questions. So those are just some real quick basic things to consider when it comes to the optimization and looking at your profile and streamlining the content that you have on there. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment again and share just a little bit more information here with you all. All right, so in talking about your next steps, as I said, I like to give 30-day challenges to folks. So thinking about what are 3 next steps you can take related to the information that you put in. Whether you want to adjust your job titles for more visibility, or whether you want to utilize that alumni tool, make some connections with folks. Maybe you want to publish an article. So write down 3 next steps that you're willing to take by February 9th, and maybe enlist an accountability buddy, see if you're successful. And I have a question from Allegra about age discrimination. That was related to that 10 to 15 years back. Again, you have to make your own determination on that. That age discrimination is a concern for some folks. And if that is the case, then maybe they do limit the amount of time they go back. But it all goes back to the purpose of why are you using LinkedIn at this time, and what are you seeking? So just some things to consider. It all goes back to kind of the purpose and what are you looking to display and how are you looking to be intentional. By the way, just kind of on a separate note about age discrimination or age concerns, one good resource, if you haven't looked at it, is AARP. Believe it or not, they have kind of a job section as well that can help you to be in touch with some employers that might be, more connected to mature workers. So it's just kind of a side thing I wanted to throw out there because that topic does come up a number of times. So I did want to also talk to you a little bit about, kind of how to get in touch with us, what we have to offer you. So we do individual appointments. They're typically about 20 minutes long. So if you need assistance on anything like identifying your job target or putting together a strategy of how do you build experience for any gaps that you might have, or just having questions about making a career pivot, you can always set up an appointment with us. Our resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profiles are all done by email. So you can go ahead and, you can access on our website the section that talks about each of those and the submission process there. We do have a really active YouTube channel that has recordings of all of the workshops that we've presented. So you can feel free to go on there. I do one on imposter syndrome that's pretty popular. There's one on AI and the job search, which is outstanding. There are those other ones related to LinkedIn that you can access. So please feel free to take a look at that. We do have callback service as well. So right now, just so you know, we are booking out quite a bit for appointments. So if you need more immediate assistance, you can always call the number on the screen here, leave a voicemail during our business hours, and we will return your call within 24 business hours. We also have drop-ins that are advertised through Handshake. You would RSVP for these ahead of time. And it's just like the name says, it's a chance for you to drop in virtually. If you have a few quick questions, you can come to a session. And a lot of times when I host those, it's somebody that's just talking about their job search, and they say, You know what? I have questions. I'm pivoting into IT. What should I, be on the lookout for? Or maybe they have some general questions about their resume. So drop-in is another service. If you're having trouble getting an appointment or you just, have some quick questions, we do offer drop-ins every week. So that's another thing to be aware of. And we do have an active Facebook page that you can join as well. So I see some folks that are putting some things in the chat. That's excellent. So Thean is putting some of your 30-day challenge goals. I love it. Writing an article explaining niche programming techniques for awesome. For a recent project, put my personal projects on LinkedIn, start using the alumni tool, and James add company LinkedIn site. Outstanding. This is exactly what I like to see, that you're engaging with the material. So that's great. So Jeanette's mentioning, if I use LinkedIn Learning and multiple skills listed, should I reduce it to make more concise? I would say to just pay special attention to that skills section, because that is, again, going to be something that employers are going to be looking at first. So just being mindful of what are the top skills that would be most important for your industry. It probably would be a good idea to make it a little more concise if you can. Yeah, so Allegra's mentioning the personal branding. So it's actually called professional branding and your LinkedIn profile for that one. And just as a reminder, you will all be sent a copy of this recording. It would typically be a day or two because we do put it on YouTube and we want to make sure we have it all processed. So you will be able to go back and reference this material, which for a lot of folks is really helpful. All right, and we are just about at closing here for the top of the hour, but I just want to see, are there any other questions, comments, anything that I can address? If so, please feel free to put those in the chat. And Allegra, good call out for the imposter syndrome workshop. I'm glad to hear that. It can be, I love when people do that one live. There is a recording of that on the site, but it's great when you do it live because a lot of times you will see how much common company you have. I think one of the most concerning things about imposter syndrome for folks is that they feel all alone with it and they don't know where's a safe place to talk about it. And in the workshop, we have other folks that are sharing their experiences and ways to mitigate. So yeah, it's oh yeah, and Thean says it's common in IT, I'm sure. I'm sure, because a lot of times they expect you to be up to speed right away and they expect you to quote unquote know everything, right? Yeah, and Mundara, if you just check on Handshake, there are a couple of them coming up. I think there is one later this month, and there will be one in February too. The February one hasn't been posted yet in terms of the RSVP link, but that will be posted by the end of next week. So there's definitely a couple of those sessions coming up. Yes, you're very welcome. What did you all think was most useful from this workshop? Curious to if anybody has any feedback. Yes, James, there's one in January and there'll be another one posted in February, which will be posted by the end of next week in YouTube, in Handshake, excuse me. Internship link, it was Parker Dewey. I'm just going to type the name in the chat here, and then if you Google that, it should be able to pop right up for you. Importance of overall strategy and why we're taking certain actions. Excellent, Allegra. Yeah, I think that is a key takeaway. Available options in LinkedIn, how to use each section. Outstanding. Type of activity on LinkedIn promotes. Yes, Andrew, that's honestly what I thought was one of the most useful takeaways in terms of the professional association that oversees a lot of LinkedIn updates. When they were telling us the areas that were indexed first by recruiters, for me, that was a game changer because it really would be the areas that you want to put a lot of attention into. Yeah. Optimizing specific categories on our profiles and how the algorithm tracks. Yes. Thank you, Mary, for that feedback. I agree that that is extremely powerful. Okay, everyone. So we are at the top of the hour. Thank you again for joining us. You will be sent a copy of that recording here in a couple of days. You can go back and access it. Please let us know if we can be of further assistance as well. Mudar, I see your comment. Updating our LinkedIn profile, especially focusing on the headline. Yes, networking and connecting, right? Because it's one thing to like have your profile up and ready, and it's another one to have it just sitting there, right? So it's good to like say, okay, how can I stay active and optimize that presence? Right. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Happy New Year. I hope that everything goes well and take care. We'll get you this recording out soon.